us growing this business from 4K to we're going to be closing the month at 120K a month. This is actually one of the most impressive case studies we have.
My name's Sasha and for almost a decade now, I've been helping people start and grow e-commerce brands to the effect of over 2,000 brands that we've launched. And so far, every 6 days, a new founder goes on to make their first $10,000 with the system that we've created. I'm joined today by my co-host, Hamen, who's spent over $30 million on advertising and made over $120 million for our clients. This is one of our own internal company brands. So at the start of the year, it was profit choke point, very challenging to even kind of run profitably.
We were having a tough time getting like a 10 extra ads or 5 extra ads at just consistent.
And then now the company, is generating between $1,000 to $2,000 a day in profit.
Well, we're profitable, but to do that, we need to maintain it.
Over the course of this last 12 months, there's been lots of moments where it's like, we should do this or we should try this, when really the only two levers that have been like at the forefront of anybody's attention that are really going to make the biggest impact on performance is. Today, we've got a very powerful case study of a business that in the last 3 months, we've 3 to 4x, and in the last 12 months, we've more than 30x. This is one of our own internal company brands, and this is exactly what we teach in the communities, us taking the strategy of what we are doing day to day and then sharing it with our clients. Hamen, this is going to be a very action-packed, powerful episode for folks to be able to learn and listen into some of the things that we've done in this company, but super pumped to have you here and super pumped to dive in.
Absolutely. And this is actually, in my opinion, one of the most impressive case studies we have, because not only we scaled the business significantly fast, but we also shared this with the community. So if you're a part of Nurture or the Mastermind, you know that we've been sharing this around, us growing this business from 4K to almost right now, we're going to be closing the month at 120K a month plus in revenue with profit targets. So it's really an impressive case study.
I think the thing that you mentioned there is also the most important thing as well, is we have scaled the business from $4,000 a month to over on track for $120,000 a month. And the thing that's actually happened through that scale is the profitability has increased tremendously, right? So at the start of the year, it was, profit choke point, very challenging to even kind of run profitably. And then now the company, is generating between $1,000 to $2,000 a day in profit consistently and growing as well. And so I think the main thing that I see this as, and I'm curious to get your input here before we get into what we did, the main thing that I look at is here, how do you identify the right problem to solve for the business in the right sequence? Because I remember over the course of this last 12 months, there's been lots of moments where it's like, we should do this, or we should try this, or we should test this, or we should perhaps switch focus and attention to go on to something else. When really the only two levers that have been like at the forefront of anybody's attention that are really going to make the biggest impact on performance is A, average order value. That was a constraint. And then B, the creative to really get that strong cut through and penetration so that we could get the ad costs down and then we could get the average order value up. And that's where all the profit lies. And it's been quite frustrating because I know there's a lot of things we've tested, hundreds of creatives that we've tested. So maybe just talk into this, because this is for everybody listening. What happens here usually is people start trying to solve a problem. They do it for 1 to 2 weeks and they go, it's not working. I better try something else. Oh, I better go and try email marketing. Oh, I better go and try influencers and something to do with affiliates. Oh, I better go and try running some TikTok ads. And they take their attention away from the main problem. So maybe talk from your perspective, how long have we sat here and tested ads, tested different offers, worked on, improving the average order value, because those are the things that really have unlocked this next level of growth.
Absolutely. And in this business, we actually had all the challenges. So when we started back in February, we didn't really have ad spend. So we lacked even just volume of traffic. So the first thing we did was actually opening up traffic and getting more data so that we can optimize. So we did that first right away when we started. And we had all the challenges you can think of. So conversion rate was good, but the price was not that good. So the margins were not that good. So the moment we scale, yes, we're profitable, but we didn't really consider all the costs in terms of us, and salaries, and even just doing other things beside the media buying and the cost of goods. So we had challenges, some of the margins not good, challenge some of conversion rate that would kind of drop right away when we do an adjustment. So I remember there was a week where we did a small adjustment in the page, and then just the conversion rate tanked. And we were like, oh, we're not going to do this again. And it was like almost like fear. And then we had also challenges with creators because one ad was doing all the work and then we were not able to get another ad. So essentially all the challenges that the business owner would face, we faced that when we started in this, I would say, case study. But we had to go and look again and look at the solution and not necessarily being distracted and fix every time the structure, including even repositioning our USP, which in my opinion, if you remember well, we had this like one wipe guarantee that you positioned essentially, but that was one of the derivative as well of our marketing. So it's really a lot of work around all the areas that I would say, if you remember the triangle, the conversion rate, the cost per click, and the AOV, we worked on all three and we fixed them. And we had challenges on all three.
Correct. And I think the key thing is just like this. It's a great example here of, so sometimes just how long it takes for you to focus on the right problem until you get the input good enough. Like if we think about how many like different offers were tried and tested, how many different creatives, like I know that Naira was, spitting out 20, 30, and so much credit to her in terms of all the work that she's done in this business. Like I think she's the main driver that's like, in there and pushing the profit and pushing the creatives. But seeing this and having like a bit of strategic oversight on it from my side, I'm like, all that it demonstrates to me is like, when you identify the right problem in your business, then you just need to focus on that thing. And the hardest part, I think, of it is you feel crazy. You know what I mean? You're like, I've tested so many creatives. I've tested so many offers. Surely there must be. What are we missing? Is there something else? Maybe we need to look somewhere else. Maybe can this business get to 100 grand a month? Like all of those doubts kind of like creep in, and it's really normal, and I think anybody who's in those stages of like 20K, 10K, trying to get to 100K, you are going to feel a little bit crazy, and you're going to feel like, there's one ad that's working. And then as soon as I scale, my ROAS tanks, or like my offer's kind of like converting. As soon as I spend more on ads, it just blows out and profit goes down the toilet. And these things are very indicative of like that stage from like 10K to 100K. This is exactly what you go through. And there's that kind of craziness, like I mentioned, that you feel like, am I missing something? Surely we can't just surely there must be another way to do this other than just make more ads, create more offers. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And keep in mind with Vesu, we had 3 defining moments, I would say, in the business. The first one would be in the last 12 months, at least. The first one was when we reopened the ad spend aggressively. That was in February, like just brought the volume right away with a cost cap. And we've seen some stability in terms of the business, but that's the first defining moment because we were not spending much on ads. So how can you expect to fix something if you're not even running ads?
We'll go into this one by one because what you said, so talk to me about why the volume of traffic from your view is really important. I'm very much aligned with what you're saying here, but just explain it. Like, let's say, for example, let's say we rewound back to February and then we didn't increase the ad spend and we tried to just, manage and fix things with very limited ad spend. Why would that be so difficult? What would be the challenges of that?
Absolutely. Because without data, you can't really do decisions. So if we're running with, let's say, 500 visitors a month, how can we do something that's reliable, consistent? So I think about ad spend as almost like time. So if we put more ad spend, we can get something faster. So for us right away, getting people in, seeing, let's say, if it's not profitable, we scale the budget, it doesn't work, then we're going to at least see what is not working and we can fix it. So right away coming in, I remember hopping on a call with Naira and it's like, I'm going to spend more. And I remember she was a little bit stressed about that. But the goal was, let's reopen the ad spend, bring some visitors in, at least a decent amount. And we were not necessarily scaling aggressively, but we started with 2,000 a week, which I know it's very high for a business that's starting. But for us, 2,000 a week, we already knew a little bit about the stability of the business. And right away, we were getting some conversions. So started spending 2,000, we were about 4,000 in revenue. So 2 extra ads right away. So it was positive, not necessarily negative, but that was the first thing we need to do. Without that, we can't even fix something. If you have 10 people in your store, how can you optimize your conversion rate? So that's why.
Agreed. And so just for people listening, I think the reason that this is important is I see this all the time with people trying to scale beyond that kind of couple of $1,000s a month, and then they want to get up to those next levels of scale. And what happens is they increase budget, increase ad spend, and then what happens is performance in terms of like maybe creative performance declines, maybe the offer stops like cutting through and penetrating. And then what they do every single time is they cut the ad spend back and then they go back to baseline. But what happens is the creatives don't like start performing at that same really profitable level again. Right. And so you take this kind of like good performance that was good at maybe, I don't know, let's say $50, $60 a day. And then you try and scale to $200 a day or $300 a day. And then you're like, oh my God, it's all just gone to crap. And then you, rather than hold that budget there, you cut the ad spend back, right, to $50, $60 a day. And then performance is really ordinary. Maybe it's kind of okay, but you know yourself, like it usually doesn't just like click back in and all of a sudden you're at a 4x ROAS again. You go back down to $50 a day and then it's like shaky. Oh, it's not really that good anymore. What are we doing? Is everything working? So it's actually the worst thing you can do. And what I find is people need to, exactly as you said, $200 a day. And then, performance starts to lag a little bit. It's like, as long as you have the risk appetite and you have the budget there to do it, and you also believe in your product, you kind of need to hold that ad spend and then fix at that level. That's the way that I see it. Is that what your thoughts?
Absolutely. And just one thing I wanted to say here. So we're not just spending blindly, like we're running the ad spend, but we're also looking at the ROI and we'll look at any issues in the business. So when we start spending, the only thing that I care about is just, do I have enough volume to make a decision? Because if the decision is not reliable, then you end up kind of just what you did, revert the ad spend, you're back to the level you had, and then you're freaking out because you spent some money more than necessary, and you're almost like panic mode. I don't know what to do. So what I would go with is first, when you start running ads, it might be just a bad week when you increase the budget and just have a bad week and you end up pausing early for nothing. So I look at it from a 2 weeks perspective. If I was to give you like something that I learned in the last 10 years, the more data, the more ad spend, the more, if it's actually positioned over more time, the more reliable the information and the better decision making you could do. So most of the time, if I put in something on a month, I can make a much better decision than a week. So if I do this, and it might be painful for some businesses, you run this and you're not profitable, and I understand, but if you do this and you keep it enough, then you're going to make a significantly more reliable information. It's not working and you know why. You're going to look at the business, you're going to see the cost high somewhere and you can start fixing that. But just a week, push the ad spend, dip in performance, and then we revert back, that's very bad.
Yeah. So let's just close the door on that. Like, let's say, for example, someone's there and they're making, $5 to $10,000 a month, and then performance is okay, and they want to start scaling, right? The business has been running for 3 to 6 months. It started to get a little bit of stability around those lower levels of like spend and lower levels of revenue, and they're trying to push it up, right? Let's say they go, okay, that's it. I'm going to start increasing my ad spend. Let's just make it really simple and easy for them, like in terms of like increase by this much, look for these things. Like, what would you say in terms of those particular areas?
All right. So full transparency, just that I can share everything that I do without initially just giving a simple setup. So if I was in that position, the first thing I will do would be creating a campaign with a cost cap, just to put in some more ad spend. So most of the time what I will do, let's say you're at 10K, you want to move to 20, 30K, 50K very easily. I would think about, well, first, what is your target ROAS? Let's say 2. Then you want to spend, let's say 25K to get to 50K. Let's say that's the target. Then what I will look at is how much ad spend I need to have per day. And I'll look at the cost cap as a campaign to run. So I'll have a broad campaign, cost cap, target. The cost could be like 50% of your AOV, which is a 2x ROAS. And then I would run that with the creators that I have. That's going to be an easy setup to just move to that 50K right away, just by increasing the budget on the cost cap and having, again, in the cost cap target, 50% of the AOV, which is 2x ROAS. If it's 3, then you can do the math. But that's an easy setup, easy to scale. So that's probably what I would do.
Yeah. Got it. Very good. Let's move into the second thing, because so you mentioned initially what we did, first things first with Pursue, we started to ramp a bit more traffic. And we needed to fix that traffic component so we could make more decisions. I think that was one of the most important things straight away. That was like, we need to have more volume of visitors so we can see what we need to do next. Once we had that kind of like worked on and we had more volume of traffic and we had creatives that were being tested and kind of used that were bringing the cost of traffic into a better position as well. If you look through March, April, like things started to get a little bit more stable in terms of like traffic costs, things of that nature. Talk me through what your version is of what happened next in terms of sequence.
First defining moment was the ad spend, and we had like right away a big push in revenue. So it was good. We were kind of seeing things, sales coming. And then we started, looking at our KPIs. That's another moment where you're like looking at, okay, what are we actually optimizing for? And we saw that, well, we're profitable, but to do that, we need to maintain a very high conversion rate. And even then, our profit margins are not necessarily taking consideration retainers or anything like that. It's just cost of goods and ad spend. We're profitable, but what are the other costs that we can add on top? So we've seen that kind of like shakiness in the margins right away. And the conversion rate needs to be very high. So it can't really drop. If it drops, let's say it's 8%, and it drops to 5%, we start losing money, or it's just unstable as a business. So I would say that kind of KPIs analysis, there's something wrong. It's clearly like we're profitable, but it's not covering everything. And kind of, I think that's a moment there in terms of looking at direction. Like we need to do something. It's not necessarily scalable. And we're plateauing at 30, 40K profitable, again, without retainers. When I say retainers, let's say my fee, there's time, and Tanita and all the team.
The email team, all the costs of the whole entire company. And then the thing as well is to this, like this is assuming all retainers, all expenses, all subscriptions, all kind of like external support services, and also self-sufficient kind of support of the stock, as in like using the cash flow of the company to buy future stock, which is a really important thing to note here, not having to use external cash to grow the business, which is really important.
So we spent a lot of time looking at that. And that's when we started doing different things. So first thing, I think we went with, well, let's cut on the cost. Let's say the cost of ad, we can cut the ROAS. We can cut the CPAs and just double our ROAS. Let's just dive into creatives. And we started getting creatives, pushing them aggressively. But problem is, reasonably speaking, we were having a tough time getting like a 10x ROAS or 5x ROAS at just consistent ad spend rate. So it just tons of creatives and not necessarily scalability. And that was our first focus. It just do more creatives, let's get this done, and let's just do that first. So we went if you remember the triangle, the ad route first. Let's get the CPAs down. And obviously I was doing the media buying. So I was trying to do cost cap to get a lower cost, which we got a 3 ROAS, but it was not the 5 or even more that would be extremely scalable. So it was a tough, I would say, call to kind of look at something else. And that's, I think, when we started looking at the USP and the offer, and you came in and you position your offer.
Because I think the thing with that as well, this is for everybody listening. So it's like when you're in that stage, and like if you look at it in terms of difficulty of problem to solve, right? So we're sitting there and we're like, okay, we're at 30, 40 grand a month now. It's okay. ROAS or like profitability was like decent, you know what I mean? But not like incredibly healthy, not like amazing, sustainable, right? And then so it's like, okay, so first things first, and this is recommendation that we always make, is like make sure that the traffic or the content isn't the problem. Does that make sense? So for us, I feel like we spent like 3-4 months there on almost purely just creative testing, right? And for the size of business, 30, 40 grand a month, like we were producing 10, 20, 30, 40 creatives, like a lot of creatives every single week, which most people struggle to produce like 5 creatives. You know what I mean? Like they can't even get like a few creative per week. And I think we really went into, let's, produce massive volumes here. Let's test massive volumes here. Let's do statics. Let's do videos, everything we can possibly do to really squeeze the creative component there. But then when you look at it in terms of, okay, what's the likelihood of us getting the acquisition cost from say 25 down to like 12? That's really what we need to do with this business to turn it into like a wildly profitable enterprise. And we're advertising in the beauty market. We've got very, very, very strong competition. We've got high CPMs in terms of just getting the actual, advertising into market. The likelihood of that happening, despite the best people doing the best things, like we'd need to be very, very, very lethal at the creative side to make that happen. And then that kind of switch then became, okay, so let's assume we just keep the creative as it is, which is pretty good. It's not like it's like horribly bad, but it could be better always, but it's like it's doing good. So then how about we switch the focus onto this, average order value? How about we look at the lifetime value? How about we look at like taking the $12 we were trying to make back on the acquisition and drive that down and be like, how can we grab that $12 over here on the average order value, strengthen up the offer, strengthen up this kind of like USPs and that cut through of the product and shorten down. The main thing that I looked at when we were having this discussion was how do we increase the certainty that people have when they visit the website that they are going to have the experience that people have 30 days or 7 days after buying. Because invariably, if you go to the Facebook comments, and the fundamental principle here is like, you need to have a damn good product. Number one, like if you've got a crappy product and it does nothing and it's very bad and people buy it and they complain about it, this is not going to work for you. Okay. So don't sell shit. Assuming that you don't sell shit, then what happens was, say for example, with Pursue, people in the comments of the Facebook ads were always like, this is the greatest thing ever. I was so skeptical. I thought it was very expensive. I couldn't believe that it was $40 for 4 cloths. But after I bought it, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. I've never stopped using this thing. I've bought one for my sister, for my auntie, for my best friend, for my mum, for my every one of my family now owns one of these things. And so what we looked at was like, okay, so clearly people love the product, right? What we need to do here is we need to put something in place that alleviates the kind of the skepticism and the uncertainty about, is this going to work? It's very expensive for what it is. And we need to kind of like shorten down as much as possible that kind of like time to first value equation, so that as soon as they purchase, they feel like they're getting things in the shortest period of time, which is where we really looked at on that strategy meeting. And we were like, okay, so how can we as a company wear more risk so that it's like almost, if there was a way to go use the product free after your first use, then we bill your card, that would be the ultimate. Like that would be the ultimate. Like we believe in our product so much, we will send it to you for free, just cover shipping. And then once it arrives and you use it for the first time, as if there's some like magical AI watching you in your shower, it's going to bill your card when you go, oh my God, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Like that would be the best case scenario. And then so we looked at like, how do we get that experience without obviously monitoring people in their showers and then auto billing their cards? And then we created this kind of one wipe guarantee, which is like, you use the product just one time, wipe your face. If you don't love the product and think it's the best thing ever, we will refund you. And then you keep the entire product that we've sent to you completely free as our apology, right? And Naira was on that, this is a lot. Oh my God, I don't know if we could do this. This is a big...
I remember I was like, that's good. I actually was like, the moment you said it, I was like, that's amazing. This is a great thing. It made me kind of like, you brought in a very, I think, old kind of type of ads. Like I've seen this growing up, like when they have like wipes and just like one wipe things like just like removed. So I was like, That's like a multi-billion-dollar company creating those ads, and we use kind of the same structure. So that's one thing. And I wanted to say something when you were mentioning creatives. I actually would say that the moment I realized we should not tackle creatives anymore and go into what you just mentioned was when I noticed that the ads we're doing, just sharing the concept with people in the community, they're getting like 10x business. Like we're just getting 10K sales here and there. And we had one brand that I managed personally, called Fails. We took one principle, like one kind of type of ad we did with Pursue, and we went from almost like 100K to 600K a month. Like right away with that, we won't do this again angle, which we shared many times. So we've heard echoes of these creatives being excellent. So when you see this, you know that we're not lacking creatives. We're more into something else. That's kind of just the detail.
It's a very good point. It's a very, very good point. And I think the other thing too, I guess this business and what it does for, number one, what it does for us, but what it does also for the community. So I think like number one, like difficulty level of marketing this product into this particular niche is quite challenging, you know, and what you just said there is really cool, because if people in different niches that have lower CPMs and a little bit less sophisticated audiences, if they use the strategy that we use, their business will crush, because it's like we're testing it with a low average order value product in a very expensive market that's hyper competitive, that's changing very quickly. And it's like, if we can vet this strategy and prove this strategy and get it like very profitable here, if you take what we are doing and use it in your company and you sell God knows what, like hammocks or like, I'm not sure, hiking boots, you're probably going to crush it. You know, and that's the coolest thing there.
I was looking at this like everywhere, like seriously. I was just coming into calls, I'm seeing, oh, this ad we did here. And to the point where we had people in the nurture community and the mastermind looking at our meta ad library, looking at the concepts. Not only that, the structure you just mentioned, the one wipe guarantee, like the changes we did, I also implemented this in other brands. And right away, we've seen an amazing result. So Pursue did a lot of, I would say, things for others. It shows just the business overall. But yeah, just the one wipe guarantee, the moment you mentioned that in the call, I remember I was like, that's something very unique. And that's the start point for our USP. And I think it was a defining moment.
I certainly agree. I certainly agree. And then just to double click on that for 1 second. So if you're listening to this, the guarantee and the reason something like that is so powerful, particularly the way that it's framed, is also because it's so short. It's 3 words. You know what I mean? One wipe guarantee. But like when you listen to it, you know immediately what it means. And that's why like the impact of such a powerful promise like that really lands with people, and you don't need to explain it. There's no elaborate details. There's no like, fine print at the bottom of the guarantee. It's just like, this is what we are able to stand behind. So if you want to work on something similar for your business, keep it short, keep it succinct, and make it very much aligned with the outcome that people can get from your product. So let's move along into the last component, which I think was definitely one of the most fundamental changes of the business, especially in the last 3 months. I think that's what's really taken things to the next level. So share with us what happened after we implemented the USP, we strengthened that up, and then what was the next step, Hamen?
So first thing, when we did that, we've seen significantly stable conversion rates. So it actually jumped to 7 to 8%. So that was something that we noticed, a significantly higher conversion rate. But again, we're looking at the numbers. The AOV was 55. We're still looking at lower margins overall. So yes, more profit, but questionable, again, scalability. And I remember doing some calls with Nera, and it was like why? Like, why is this kind of this challenge on why can't we scale more? Why can't we just, let's say, 5x the business? And I actually mentioned this to her in a call. It was like, we have a very high break even. That's potentially what we have. And we need to increase a little bit our margins. And this is when we started dissecting the offer. And actually, Nera, she went and worked on almost I don't know how she did this, but she just did something on the side, and she came back 2 weeks later and she was like, I have an offer that we're going to do for Black Friday. And I remember she just showed it, and it was like a buy two get one. And I was like, that's a unique offer. It's not a buy one get one free because we can't afford it. It's a buy two get one. And that was, I think, a very strong moment for the business, because the buy two get one would change this business entirely. Not only this business, just to share with you something very cool. We took the same offer that Bissou implemented, word by word, the same structure, the buy two get one, the same homepage. You can look it up, Safels and Bissou. And we also scaled another brand significantly where it was declining performance. We scaled it back to right now we're doing 100K a week. So very, very good, I would say, outcome.
But the other thing to this as well is this, and this is important. So not every brand will have the same impact with this offer, right? And the reason that this offer was able to be so successful is because it very much aligned with the existing consumer data of what people were doing over the lifetime of the business. And so as a fascinating point that we would always sit back and look at is, so when people buy a pack of these 4 cloths, right? It's number one, 4 cloths will last people 6 months to a year, even just 4 of them, right? However, the most commonly purchased back-end upsell was just more of the same. They would buy one, then they would buy another one, and then they're kind of equipping themselves for 2 years, 3 years. It's crazy. They're so well equipped into the future. They've got packs on packs on packs. It's insane, right? And so what we found was people were buying more and more and more of the same, even though there wasn't really a need for it. Right? It's not like the product runs out after 4 or 5 weeks. I was joking with Nero. I was like, I think we need to almost find a reason to tell people that the cloths are going to expire. You know what I mean? They've reached their use by date, and the bacteria levels have got to a certain level, and it's no longer safe to use. You need to buy another one to come back again. Something along those lines.
I was thinking about actually the Apple structure. We have new upgraded something in the product so that we can kind of sell the same thing again, but better. Obviously, we improve the product.
Correct.
But I was thinking about that. We could do this every year. Apple have been doing this for more than a decade. It's crazy. And
they just change a little bit of the interface, a little bit of the UI, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. This is a whole new tool. Anyway, and so what Naira did is she looked at all the customer data. She looked at exactly when people were purchasing, how frequently they were coming back, what they were saying when they were coming back by way of the gifting, how many packs people were buying for their friends, their family, their loved ones. And so that really became one of the things that structured the offer. But the super interesting thing here to note as well is the buy 2, get 1 free in the ads didn't perform that well, right? The ads that said 40% off or just business as usual, problem, and then solution, those ads crush. right? However, when people get to the actual site itself and they're sold on the idea of the product and they like the idea of the solution that it creates, then the buy two, get one free really like stepped in and did all the lifting of the conversion, which I thought was fascinating in terms of like people were coming there. And I believe the reason for this is the ads that talk about problem solution give people a higher intent that I'm here to solve the problem. Then when they get to the actual PDP, they're like, they have the right intent, but then they see more value in getting more product for less cost. And then they kind of do that kind of conversion, which I thought was very interesting. So that was another massive defining moment over the last 12 months that I think enabled the business to scale from $1,000 days to, I think yesterday, $5,000, nearly $5,000 days with much, much, much better profit.
Yes. And we, again, like when you mentioned like we're doing 1,000 profit a day, we're also adding some fees that should not be like, if you're starting out in e-commerce, you're not going to take $6,000 off the business every month, like probably not initially at least. And we're taking that and we're profitable after that fee every time. So that's something to note. But otherwise, the view on this would be like the ads, as you mentioned, we have like an amazing coach. She's actually doing a lot of content and strategy for the community. And she did an amazing ad for us that we leverage in terms of the ad account. So we had also, again, if you have a good, already a creative department and you have a good offer, it's just going to work. And that's what we did essentially. And it was not necessarily, there's no magic. You have a good offer and then you have good creatives, you're gonna scale up.
It's very true. That I think the thing that this highlights the most, this case study and this like sequence is number one, like doing the right things, but number two, like doing the right things in the right order, right? Like the way this has been executed on over the last 12 months has been very much almost like textbook in terms of all of our discussions that we've ever had around, fix the CPC, then fix your conversion rate, then fix your average order value. And all we've done here is really go through, as we discussed on the podcast, geez, it must be 12 months ago, maybe longer now, where it was like the holy triangle, do this first, then do this second, then do this third. And so it's like, it's funny because it's like you look back on what happened and you're like, oh yes, it worked fantastically, but it's also like, no shit. It was
not planned, but I think it was not planned like that. So we did it really naturally.
Correct.
Like we did the right actions, obviously, and you joining in, for example, that was a session that you did coming in just to look at exactly what to do here in terms of actions. And I think that strategy session, it was the right time, obviously, with looking at solutions and things like that. But we did not plan this, but it still went into the sequence that we talked about. So it's really surprising.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying here. It's like what we did over the course of the year, it wasn't as if it was like measured and like the blueprint was followed specifically, but like what happened as a result is also because of the sequence of the way we did things. Like if we look back now in hindsight and we're like, okay, so we did this first. What do? Get more traffic and get better ads, fix the CPC. What do we do second? Get better USPs and increase the conversion rate. That was the next step. What do we do third? Oh, we just focused on the average order value so we can scale more. And then now at this point, it's about like doubling down and just continuing through that cycle over and over again and be like, how are the ads performing well? How can we double down on CR? How can we increase on average order value? How can we kick out the lifetime value? And now I guess like one of the biggest constraints that we'll certainly have to look closely at is like the inventory and stock turnover, right? That's going to be certainly a bottleneck of the business if we start running out of stock on all things. And I think this is something more so back of house problem that we'll need to solve for. But in the next 12 months ahead, I'm very excited about what we can do with this company at the current level of growth.
And I think we're going to use some of our own partnership. Like we have some partnership to ship directly to the consumers from China. I think that's going to be one option that I would highly recommend because it's very scalable just as a structure and not necessarily just doing the fulfillment internally because that can be draining if we just look at a risk for the company. So you need to work with essentially a big factory that can handle massive amount because otherwise it's going to be a risk overall for the company. So that's something that I would probably position in the future. But otherwise, it's something you mentioned when I was talking about the sequencing. For me, the surprising part is that we were not zooming out initially. Like so, when we started that traffic, like initially, it was not like we're gonna increase the traffic and then we have this new problem. It was almost like we see the problem gradually. So we were kind of facing challenges on a week to week rather than just initially sitting down and like, hey, we're gonna do this. Like we're gonna have this problem and then this problem. We were facing them and kind of adapting to that problem. Yes. So it's always immediate, the data you get, and the decision is on a week to week, which is very challenging.
Agreed. And I guess like if you think about it for people listening, it's like, that's exactly the reason that you need to have like a mentor or a coach, because if you can't see where you are in time versus where you need to get to, and then you're just like in that week to week and you're like, I don't even know. I'm just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping, like, it's like you'll never be able to optimize correctly, or it'll just take so much longer. You know what I mean? And you'll be there like bludgeoning your way through the creative process, trying a little bit of average order value, trying a little bit of email marketing, trying all these things. And it's like, you just need to do this for this amount of time until you get this result. Then we'll switch over focus and we'll just do this. And I think this opportunity or this result that we've generated over the last 12 months it's almost textbook. You know what I mean? You look back on it, it's like, of course it worked at the way that it did, but it wasn't easy, and it wasn't like a walk in the park. It wasn't just like, oh wow, we went from $4,000 a month to $120,000 or $130,000 a month, and it was super easy. It's like each of the steps required like focused attention and really, really, really detailed, like solving the problem until we kind of unlock that next level. But the interesting thing now is almost like, I was saying it to Naira, like especially leading into this December period where most brands are slowing down, they're having a lot of kind of like lower performance, and Busuu is like scaling even more. I'm like, Jesus, like this thing just keeps on going. But the interesting thing is, once you get all of those components working at the right level, like she was joking about it, and she was like, there's actually very little to do in the business. You know what I mean? She's like, I haven't really done much over the last 2 weeks, and ad spend is just maintained. Conversion just keeps going up and sales just keep going through the roof. And so it's like, once you get the right ingredients into the system, like you don't need to sit in there like micromanaging everything, getting your hands dirty every single day, which is really cool.
Actually mess up your business.
That's exactly. Oh, you, and this is what I said. We were going for a walk, Naira and I, and she's like, what should I be doing? And I was like, don't touch anything. Keep your hands out of it. And it's almost more difficult to sit there and not touch, because you want to be like, oh, let me just see if I can, I'm just going to try and do this. And it's like, don't touch anything. So
that's like the most dangerous thing. Like when you get to that point, you're going to have that, well, I just want to continue changing my page, and you're just going to come back to state one.
Precisely. And so if you're listening, I don't think you're in a stage just yet where you're sitting back and not touching. I think you're in a stage where you need to go into your business through each of these sequences and fix these things in the order that we've kind of presented it here. But very, very exciting episode, Hamen. I think this has been valuable. I think reflecting back onto this business over the last 12 months has it's been really interesting. I've learned a lot through it. I think that Naira's learned a lot, and I think the main people that have got a lot of value through this is definitely the listeners in the community and the people that are able to learn from our mistakes and then take the things that we are doing and then win because of them. So I'm excited for what we can do. Watch this space as we scale this up to $1 million a month and beyond, because the future looks bright for this business. So super pumped, and look forward to sharing this session in the community, and I look forward to seeing where we can take this brand.
Absolutely. It's going to be massive, specifically Valentine. We're coming.
Valentine's Day, we're coming for you. See you soon, Hamen. Thanks so much.